Marlene Hunt. Here at the Above and Beyond Group, we're passionate about helping leaders and managers in the aged care and the community services sector in your personal and professional development. We've produced a series of short videos to help and support you through this, and they're in line with the leadership capability frameworks. In particular, I'd like to talk to you about leading self. So this video, I'm hoping, will give you food for thought. Maybe you could jot down a few notes and have a little ponder about some of the things that we're going to discuss that might help you in your personal development and also in your professional development. We also know how tricky it can be caring for others in ordinary times, and in particular now we have coronavirus times. So as far as leading self, I'm just wondering, how much do you put yourself on your to-do list, or where are you on your to-do list? And I would imagine quite often your needs are right at the bottom down on the bottom of the to-do list. That's if they make it there at all. I love this picture. It really shows the value of the two aspects that I'm going to talk about today, and they are resilience and perseverance. And I think this is a beautiful example of both. We hear these terms constantly, and I'd like to give you a few insights into some of the characteristics and the attributes that people who have resilience and perseverance, that they have, in droves, and maybe think about how these can apply to yourself. So what does it mean to be resilient? So we know that it's the ability to bounce back, it's toughness and hardiness, and in effect it's the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. But what does this really mean in practical terms, and what does it sound like, and what does it look like? And how can your needs be met through growing resilience? Firstly though, I'd like you to think about someone who you consider to be very resilient. It may be someone you know, or it may even be someone you don't know, such as like the Dalai Lama or Nelson Mandela. And just have a think about what makes them that way. What is it? What are the characteristics, and what do they do that allow them to get through such hard times and to keep on keeping on? Now, we know we all have different abilities to cope, and we're born with different capacities for resilience. But we also know that we need to build this resilience, and ironically, it is through hardship that the resilience is built. So now we have the chicken and the egg situation. So we know that we can build resilience through going through hardship, and yet it is needing the resilience that gets us through the hardship. And this little chick is obviously having lots of resilience coming out through his egg. So as I go through this little video, I'd like you to have a think about a few things along the way. Number one is, how am I travelling in some of these areas at the moment? How does this apply to me? What am I good at? What are my strengths? What are some areas that I might be able to improve in? How does this relate to me in my work and in my home life? If we build resilience in our overall life, we can bring that to both our work and our home. And how will this contribute to my self-care and that leading self? How will my needs be met better if I can build on my resilience? And lastly, what do I need to develop further to take on some of these attributes and to build on some of the characteristics that I know will help serve me better? So you might be thinking to yourself, but I am who I am and I can't change that. And yet neuroscience tells us now that we can, and we can change our mindset and our thought patterns, and that's called neuroplasticity. So we can alter our limiting beliefs or those unhelpful thought patterns, as well as worn out habits. So it takes time and it takes effort and it takes some motivation. But if it serves us well, and it helps us to advance our career more, and it helps us to feel more comfortable and happier within that whole career journey, then it's something that we might like to think about. So there are lots of attributes and characteristics that really resilient people have, and I've looked at 5 in particular. So the number one is having acceptance. So acceptance of all sorts of situations, and literally saying it is what it is, I can't change it, so what have I got to work with? So people who are really resilient, they don't see acceptance as giving in, they see it as a letting go. So it could be letting go of thoughts such as, but it's always been like this. Or maybe, am I thinking that someone is to blame here? And also, can I let go of that story that I've been holding on to? And I'm holding on to it because it's in my comfort zone, even if it's uncomfortable. So these are those mindset things that I'd like you to have a think about as we go through this. The second characteristic that really resilient people have is that they nurture connections and relationships. Now, we have all sorts of relationships. We have relationships with our family and our friends, and we know that these can also be tricky at times, and we have to work at them. But I suppose more importantly, in the context of this video, is around our connections and our relationships at work, because we are going to come up against people sometimes that we simply don't like or that we don't get on with, and they can be tricky. So is it that we need to take a new perspective, or do we need to see it from their perspective? And when we're stuck in our mindset, that can be a real challenge. But the important thing about relationships at work is that we need to have them so that they work towards mutual outcomes. And as I said, these can be tricky at times. Another relationship that you may not have considered as far as your own needs are relationships like if you are a person of faith. What's your relationship like with your God, particularly in troubling times? And we are going through very tricky times at the moment. And the last one is your connection with nature. We know that Mother Earth is a healer, so I challenge you on your next break, go outside, sit under a tree, even if it's only for 5 or 10 minutes. Take your shoes off and feel the earth beneath your feet. Gardeners will always attest to gardening being one of the most fulfilling activities. It's mindful, it's peaceful, and it's silent. And this can really serve us well as meeting our needs of self-care and self-nourishment. The next point 3 in attributes and characteristics of resilient people is maintaining a sense of humour. And I've just been seeing a couple of really great videos, TikTok videos actually on TV about some of the nursing staff in different hospitals having a dance around and really lifting the mood. So we know it's really important for our self-care and fulfilling our needs. It's having the ability to laugh at ourselves or to see light in a really dark situation. So humour that's not deprecating, it allows hope and it allows optimism. Finding humour in challenging times can also lighten our mood, it can lift a burden, and it can help put things into perspective. Laughter shows that it reduces stress hormones, cortisol and epinephrine, and it also releases our endorphins or our feel-good hormones. We know that collective laughter, it also contributes to physical, psychological and a social sense of well-being. Number 4 on my list of characteristics of resiliency is asking for help. Now, people who are very resilient see asking for help as a very natural and logical thing to do. They see it as a strength and not a weakness. So many resilient people will persevere, but not to the point of their own detriment. And maybe that's one of those questions that you can ask yourself. Do I push through? Do I push through until I'm at that point of breaking? How often do I actually continue on when I really should stop and think to myself, I need to take more care of me and look at my needs? So resilient people just think that asking for help simply makes sense. So maybe whatever it is that's stopping you from asking for help is holding back your true potential and also your ability to grow, but not only professionally, but also personally. The last little section in resiliency characteristics and attributes are knowing our boundaries. So resilient people really recognise where their boundaries are. So we have both professional and personal boundaries, and we often create these unconsciously, which also means that we can find ourselves crossing out of our boundaries or allowing other people to cross into ours, and suddenly we're not feeling safe. A boundary is our own set of guidelines and limits that we create to keep ourselves safe in a two-way interaction with others. One really significant boundary that many people struggle with, particularly in the workplace, is the ability to say no. So saying no, it's just not what we say, it's how we say it. It doesn't need to be an outright rejection. There may be alternatives, another time, another person, another process. When you need to say no, consider the perspective of that other person. So put yourself in their shoes, and how would you be able to accept a no, even when it's not what you want to hear? So when you're delivering the message, consider your tone of voice, the words you use, and also your body language. As we all know, what people perceive and understand is only 10% of the words. The other aspect of saying no is that often there are reasons why we don't want to say no. And we'll just flick off a few here. First of all, you want to help. So you went into this profession because that's what you want to do. So saying no is against the grain. You're afraid of being rude. It might be one of those stories that's running around in your head because you were brought up not to say no. You have to agree. You want to be agreeable. You don't want to be one of those people that everyone says, oh, but they always say no, they're always going to object. Number 4, you don't like conflict, and conflict can be so confrontational. We need to be able to learn how to manage conflict well. Well-managed conflict can result in great solutions, and it can also really result in that area of trust that's so important when we're developing relationships, particularly at work. So conflict doesn't have to be something that's bad. In fact, it's not. It can be a really productive thing, but it needs to be handled well. And often we don't like going into conflict, so we'll just simply agree. You're afraid of losing your job. Well, that might seem very real for you, but is it actually? What's the truth in that? You may not want to burn any bridges, so by saying no, you might think that you're going to miss out on lost opportunities. Again, is that a story in your head? Can we have a change of mindset that can help us overcome that? And of course, you may have your own reasons for saying no. So I'd like you to just have a think about some of those things. And if you are the person who really does find it hard to say no, we'll now have a look at. This is a method that we use at Above and Beyond with quite a lot of success, and it's called View, Action, Result. It's a model that we use, and it helps to firstly just discover what our view is, and sometimes we're not even conscious of that. And then we look at being able to take an alternative point of view. So I've spoken about neuroplasticity and how that creates new pathways in our brains that can facilitate a change in attitude and mindset. And this model demonstrates that. So we've got view, action, and result. In this case, we're going to look at it for someone who we've just discussed finds it difficult asking for help. So the current view might be that if I ask for help, I'll look incompetent, I might appear weak, and it will waste other people's time. And so the action is that I do the job anyway. The result is that I get the job done, but I could be lucky that it goes okay, or it might result in possible harm or risk or some detriment to someone or in the process. And now my worry becomes anxiety, and that is not helping myself. So let's change that view. So asking for help is difficult, but I know that I want to do my job well. And I also know that I have the responsibility to know that I've done the job well. But I need to know more, and I need help to get that. So my action is now that I'm asking for help, I do the job. And the result is that the job is now well done. I've learned something new, perhaps, and that helps me forward in my career, but also in leading myself. And also I feel relieved, and there's that relaxing of stress and worry, and that's really important for our self-care. So think of something that you would like to overcome or change, and you might like to give this method a go. And you're very welcome to contact me if you'd like some more information in this regard. Okay, moving along, let's have a quick look at perseverance. We know that it's doing something in spite of difficulties and challenges to achieve success, or in other words, it's not giving up until the end, even if it's really hard. So there's three aspects of perseverance that I'll quickly chat about. And again, have a think about this in regards to yourself, both personally and professionally. So, what's your why? I don't know if you've heard of Simon Sinek at the moment. He wrote the book, What's Your Why? And he's very popular at the moment around leadership, organisations, and looking after self. So, what is your why? What's your passion? Is that what keeps you persevering in your profession? And what's your motivation? Do you need to rekindle that motivation? In other words, what's your job mojo? And have a think about that, where you're at this. In that earlier question, I said, how are you travelling? So, how are you travelling as far as what your why is? The second one is about self belief. So we have to really believe that we've got the qualities and the skills to achieve your outcome, or that you can acquire those qualities and skills. And we are learning for the rest of our lives. We don't suddenly jump into a new role or a new job and know everything. That's simply not possible. Limiting beliefs can undermine your ability to persevere and absorb some of the energy that you need to power forward. Nurturing your self-belief can also really support your drive to survive and keep going in that forward trajectory. The last point about being able to persevere and keeping on, I love this one, sitting in the middle of the road. At the moment, wouldn't that be lovely? Is know your plan. What's your goal? Do you know where you're going, or do you even know where you want to be? Because if you don't, then how are you going to get there? Keep your plan flexible and adaptable. It will help you to remain focused, and it will also give you a sense of accountability to yourself. So that for me is sort of that road, just exactly there in the picture. So I think the last thing I can say in this little video is to remember it's okay to put yourself first and to make sure that your needs are met, that will nurture yourself, that will allow you to become the better leader and the better manager. So thank you for listening to this short video. If there's anything more than I can help you on, or you'd like any further information, you can contact me at info@aboveandbeyondgroup.com.au, or there's my mobile on 0402 88 4459.